Hello, and welcome back to Let's Remember Skies of Arcadia. We are going to head into Deep Sky in this episode. We are upgrading our ship with a new engine, and so it is time for us to head as far below the clouds as we can. The Delphinus just becoming more and more impressive as time goes by. It can fly above the clouds, go into deep sky, has a friggin' moonstone cannon. It's an amazing thing that the game lets us engage with our ship in such a really powerful manner. Often I feel sometimes when you get modes of modes of transportation in games, it feels a little bit like, okay, well, here's your airship, there you go. There's not as much value attached to them. They're these sort of things. Certainly Sid cares about the high wind or whatever, but here it's like we constantly engage with the Delphinus. But Enrique must return to Valua. He cannot travel with us any longer. This will be my last voyage with you aboard the Delphinus. Galcian and the Armada have freed themselves from the control of the Valuan Empire. So, Enrique, despite his objections to the course of his nation, still loves his mother and loves his country, and is going to go back and tell them what is going on. Despite the risks that he has taken in helping Vise and the others. But Ramirez has a strong notion of duty, he has a strong affection for his people, and he truly is an inspiring character in his own right. Every character in this game has a lot of goodness to them. Enriquez is tied up in a strong empathy for other people. He's incredibly empathetic. Vise is incredibly brave. Fina is... I mean, everybody's brave, but I think Vise's chief characteristic that is the most interesting is his bravery. Enrique's is his empathy. I'm going to sneeze, but I'm going to turn off the mic. Hear it, but it was fun. So now we have to head into Deep Sky. And we have to sort of figure out how that goes. I know where we need to go. I forget if the game actively tells you. For all I know, I am totally doing things out of order. I shouldn't be, though. So there's a vortex right beneath Shrine Island. And that is the entrance to Deep Sky. In Deep Sky, we are trying to find Fina's ship. Our engagement with the space of Deep Sky will be sort of interesting to see. And while I'm also there, I'm trying to find two pieces of a metal called Velorium, which is something that Ryu Khan is going to need to use in order to get Vise his best weapon. So we'll just keep on heading this way. Let me pause for a moment to make sure I'm heading sort of towards Shrine Island. We'll turn a little bit. And I'm showing these voyages because the last video I showed the voyage from above the cloud layer, so let's show it from below the initial cloud layer. Just to give another sense of this world as this sort of extant, existing, redundant as that turn of phrase was, space. We are dealing with a game that really does want the world to feel very cogent. So there is Dangrel Island, which apparently has built the ladder down into Deep Sky. Where's the vortex? Here we go. Can we head straight down? Yes. Well, it told me that I could. Where's the vortex? It popped up for a second, and I don't think I timed everything correctly. There we go, the vortex. The vortex and Deep Sky are one of those things, sort of like the black moonstone that just sort of exist in the world, and we sort of have to make our own decisions about what they imply. Which is something I like. There are all these items in the world, including the discoveries, and we sort of have to come up with an implied history about what these spaces are and what they mean. You know, why is there this cloud layer that prevents people from going so low? Even though technology overcomes that barrier, like what caused it? Was it just the rains of destruction? I mean, what's going on here? And also, the cool thing is that this functionally turns the Delphinus into a submarine. So all of the possible ways that you can have to engage with an ocean-type space, we get it. We get all the fun of an airship. We get to enjoy the sort of notion of sailing, but we also get to enjoy the notion of submergence. And so this is just a really fun descent, and I like having the camera angle like this. So Deep Sky is a location that I actually know fairly well. I know where Fina's ship is, and I am pretty sure I know where the two pieces of Valorium are. So the surface of what is down here is just mud and destroyed space. So we have a sonar, which we can ping to find Fina's ship. Which is enjoyable. If it detects anything, it will show up question marks. If we mess up, we actually have an airship battle that we have to fight against creatures from the depths. Here, it's not a difficult thing, but we just sort of lower the crane when we find the location. We can pick up whatever we want. So here's where we're supposed to find the Valorium. And the only downside is that we can only use the sonar a certain amount of times. So I think I want to go 3 up. It is. Right, and then head this way onto this square, and I think this is the sonar button. And it gives us all of these possible pings, and I think there's a piece of Valorium right here. Another one is a little bit further to the east side of the map. Yes, Valorium, cool. So another one is to the east side of the map. And so we have this space down below the sky where it's like you can't sort of be in this space, right? It's interesting to me, the implicit history. And again, we have the really nice sort of organ version of the music that we've heard before. Valorium should be here. Yes, very good. So our segment in Deep Sky might be fairly quick. It's nice. It's funny to say that such a desolate space can be nice, right? But the Dark Rift was sort of nice in its own way. We just sort of have to find the beauty in it. And then this should be Fina's ship. I remember those fairly well, because of all the stupid not being able to ping so many times. Although the area that the ping covers, you don't need to ping too much. And so I like sort of the change of interaction with the space here. The only thing that I find a little strange about it is that, you know, we go into Deep Sky, it's sort of this tepid space, and we just have to take it for granted that we've found that we found the ship. It's another one of those big coincidences that the game tosses to us. And we just sort of take it at face value. But nothing is ever super easy in Skies of Arcadia. Something is attacking us. It is the chameleon. And we will finally have our final fight with De Loco. So, a Valuan ship that chases us into deep sky. It's another well-framed encounter. And so now we have to use whatever we can. The sort of gimmick of this battle being stated right there. Visibility being sort of poor. We have to use whatever we can against him. So things like torpedoes might not be as effective here. It's a lot about really broadsiding him with a lot of cannons and things like that. But we have all of those options available to us. I'm not going to pontificate too much about the battle system here but you can see the sort of darkness of the space is reflected by the fact that we don't know anything at the top of our grid. So I'll talk about the grid for just like 1 second here. Well, more than a second. The grid doesn't tell us when our best chances are or anything like that. It just is there. Nice thing is we can start off using Urala right away now. And just do our default actions, which we've sort of expected by now, but it's a small thing, but it is a mechanic integrated with sort of the scenario where, you know, the grid doesn't show us what's going on because we can only barely see what's going on as well. Integration of mechanics with those sorts of things, it's always something I appreciate in games. It's very easy to just sort of have, you know, a default system for how your engagements are going to occur and never really play with those. Skies gives you the functional sort of experiences that you would expect, and then, like I said, especially towards the end of the game, starts to play with them a little bit. You know, makes you alter your engagement with the grid, makes you alter sort of how you handle moment-to-moment decisions in battle. It's important stuff. So the trick here is actually we need to watch De Loco's pattern. And so one way of sussing this out, honestly, is to do this. Is to attack on every square and see where our most effective damage point is. Because I honestly, for as much as I'm bragging about how much I remember sort of the geography of Deep Sky, I don't necessarily remember the pace of the battle here, so I can just use my sub-cannons, which will hit pretty hard. I'm in a very good space with my characters and my stats, but I can use my sub-cannons to sort of ping where De Loco is during any point of the battle in the grid space, which is another thing. I'll just say that the game definitely gives you a lot of chances to really figure out how to use your tools to the best advantage. Somebody might be tempted to fire once and like buff yourself or do this, but I know the first 2 turns right now I get decent damage, the 3rd turn not so much, and I can sort of try and figure out what happens on the 4th. But because I have the sub-cannons, I can just go throughout the turn and see what's effective and what isn't. Right, so the end of the turns tend to be not effective from the looks of it, so I can try and place stuff at the forefront of my turns. And they're equally ineffectual actions for De Loco. So my big solution here is actually, like I said, front load as much damage as we can and sort of go from there. And maybe take a risk, or launch a torpedo into the second round. I like talking about my combat actions in the game because they tend to be something that I can intellectualize and explain as I'm sort of performing them. I hope you don't mind me getting into that tactical mindset too much. And we have no particular assurance that our attacks are always going to go the way that we want them to, but sort of we did a test pattern of, well, okay, here's our attacks, let's see what we can do. We have this pool to play with as we always do. And so we can just sort of take things from there and adjust and figure out what's going on. This is a battle where Moonstone Cannon's not really something we deal with too much. De Loco has his own large cannon that he can use. De Loco's sort of always having some sort of attack gimmick on his ship. And actually we'll ping on the last 2 turns this time. And so we'll just load this turn with a lot of attack actions and sort of take our chances on seeing what we can and can't hit. Unfortunately, that front-loaded turn, it didn't do as well. So the pattern either is shifting or we're just having bad luck. So we adjust and fix that by changing our behavior a little bit and having some damage near the back of the turn. But we do have just moments where the game is going to give us all of these things that we can and can't do, sort of shift them around. Here, it's really messing with what we can do in the ship battles again. We've had certain patterns that we take for granted, and here we don't particularly do so. Or at least we do so, and we're shown that those actions aren't necessarily effective or useful for us. So I definitely find the latter half of the game, even though I've sort of, in the last section, made a point of not trying to overstate the novelty of what's going on, because I don't necessarily know if novelty is the right notion for what's occurring. I do think that the latter half of the game explores more with the battle system, explores more with the characters, and so we've weakened De Loco, and we sort of just deal with what we have to deal with. So he's gonna try and pop back with one of his special weapons, right? The De Loco Harpoon Cannon. But here's the thing, is that we jump back into the battle, and now he's really close to us, so it's like, easy stuff. Now our attacks are going to do a ton of damage, because there's no way that he is... It's the downside of, okay, we're stuck near him, but he's stuck near us. So it's like, whatever. I load up on Spirit again. I maybe heal myself back to full, and I just go from there. This is an interesting encounter for me because it is one of the few, not to blatantly spoil anything, this is one of the few, if possibly the only admiral that we actually kill ourselves. This will be the end of De Loco. Galcian killed Gregorio. Alfonso's sort of run off and out of the picture. Belace is around, Vigoro's around. Ramirez is around, but I mean, we'll deal with Ramirez too, but I mean, in terms of a ship-to-ship battle, this is one of the few admirals that we really, we defeat in a ship battle and then it's over. The game doing this thing where it sets up villains and the story sort of disposes of them just as much as we actively do. It's not like okay, now I've killed this guy and I'm working my way towards the Emperor or whatever. It's a little bit more varied. The same way that the acquisition of the Moonstones wasn't just necessarily, oh hey, we're going to get all of these things and it will happen over time, and blah blah blah. Certainly that is something that happens, but, you know, we weren't always the people who got the Moonstones first. We acquired them at the end of our journeys in spaces, but it's not like we just went into a temple, picked up the crystal, and got it done. In the same way, that's not necessarily what happens here when it comes to how enemies are approached. Oh, a debuff. Wasn't expecting that. So we won't do as much damage here. Our main cannon missed too. That's particularly unfortunate. But the amount of damage that he can do to us is not that dangerous, so I have no problem with it. Because right there, we built up to a strong end of the round, feeling comfortable. As always, I do stress, I do like the framing of what's going on here. And I do like sort of the amount of freedom we have in what's happening, but I do like how each encounter... Oh, Increm... I thought casting Increm would sort of counterbalance Drillnos. Maybe I'm wrong there. What was I saying? Oh yeah, just the framing of the scenarios. So there's scenarios that are largely things that you would expect to see in a JRPG, you know, prison breaks, ancient ruins. But I think that the way that Skies frames those encounters is always very strong. Those sort of interactions with the space or the context behind them never feel insignificant. And then to top it off, it will also give us sort of really dramatic notions like two airships battling at the bottom of the sky while one is chained to the other, and things like that. It's very compelling, some of the scenarios that arise. And I wish... I mean, again, I don't want to overstate things and say that it's anything that is mind-blowing, but I certainly think that it is effective and interesting and demands a certain attention from us as an audience. But alas, that is the end of De Loco. And so, our time in Deep Sky comes near an end. We will ascend upwards and get the heck out of Dodge. And we will head back to Crescent Island and sort of take things from there. We are really starting to get close to the end game. It's very exciting. So what we will do is we will head back to Crescent Island, sort of celebrate our victory, see what comes next. And then the next section is going to focus quite a bit on Fina. And I wish I had sat down and sort of prepared, you know, in my mind, the things I want to say about Fina. But we will hope once again that extemporaneous thought will offer some degree of cogency. This whole series being a partial experiment in improvisation, experiential reactions, and other things. We'll see how that holds up. Because there's a lot I want to talk about with Fina. She is in all honesty, possibly one of my favorite video game characters ever. As a natural result of being my favorite character in my favorite game, right? Certainly there are characters of more complexity. Particularly in JRPGs, you can find all sorts of really complex things. I think Fina is not necessarily a hyper-complex character, but I think that she is an incredibly admirable character. I'm saying a lot because I wish I had better ways to articulate what I mean, or better examples to sort of fall back on. Oh. So I think, actually, we need to go to Sailor's Island to drop off Enrique. So you get to see me travel through the air once more. And it's not too hard to find where we need to go. Sailor's Island, very easy to locate. I should probably use those captain stripes while I'm at it, huh? Just for the hell of it. Oh, I always do that. I always do that. The menu I always assume will be like that. Vise the Dashing. We'll see where we're at by the end of things. Where are the captain stripes? 2 of them. Very nice. And we have a little bit of money. It's very tempting to use those to buy more seeds for Vise, which is honestly what we might do. This is Maramba, which means that Pirate Isle is to the west. Across the Sky Rift. Or, well, the stones. Let's see how on course I am. Not bad. Like I said, you start to learn the world fairly well. Having our graphic glitches a little bit. You take the good with the bad when you play a game like this. Oh, my goodness! You know? I said it before and I mean it. The game does really surprise me from time to time because I forgot that we need to fight Baltor again. So you get 2 airship battles, which means that this will last a little while longer. Baltor's sort of a likable character in his brazen audacity at attacking what is blatantly a superior ship. I suppose the encounter with Baltor feels a little perfunctory after the encounter we just had with De Loco. That tends to be why or at least why I would rationalize why I don't remember it as much. I think the fun thing to do would be to have this, and who knows, maybe it does this without me even remembering. I would love for this encounter to just be, no matter what action you do, you fire one shot and you just beat the crap out of Baltor. Given the caliber of our ship, that's pretty much what's going to happen anyway. But, you know, Baltor can be used for some sort of humorous effect. His inclusion here seems mostly just to pad out the game more than to do anything else. I probably should have healed, but he's not going to defeat us in one turn. When I look at this now, I think it's very interesting to me that Skies offers a fairly non-traditional set of combat encounters, namely the encounters with De Loco and Deep Sky, and then follows it up so quickly with a traditional encounter with just a normal air pirate. The contrast is very noticeable, and not necessarily something I've ever clued myself into before. Sort of surprising to me, actually. So we'll just focus a ton of firepower on that last turn. And if this doesn't take them out, then we'll Moonstone Cannon, and it will totally be done. We'll drop Enrique off is what we'll do, and then instead of heading to Crescent Island, we'll head to Crescent Island in the next episode. So this will sort of be our end. See, like, that's just the sub-cannon, so it is a thing where I'm going to attack with my just massive volley of torpedoes and cannons, and there's... Unless they all miss, or unless he manages to do amazing damage to me within the next couple turns, which would be incredibly embarrassing, he has no chance. Yeah. There's some humor in a situation like this, to be sure. Wonder if I even get a captain stripe from it. Yeah, of course not. Get a couple of items, though. I'll get to see what I want to equip, if anything, on the Delphinus. Oh, Baltor. It almost feels like an Inspector Gadget type thing, just like,
curse you, Gadget, next time.
It's just like, he just doesn't know when to give up. And unfortunately, we have to part with Enrique. But he's off to do good things. When we part with characters, as always, it tends to be bittersweet, but we know that we'll reunite with them again somehow, in some way. We found Drachma again. Gilder returned to us after some of his moving about. And so we leave Enrique here.
Aye.
Two contrasting codes of conduct in this game. The code of conduct by which the Blue Rogues sort of govern themselves, and then the code of conduct that you would think is incompatible, this sort of notion of value and chivalry, or whatever we wish to call it, but it turns out that it's incredibly compatible. These two notions of what honor is, you know? You've taught me that there are all kinds of people in this world, people worth fighting for, people worth dying for. I want to protect them, all of them. I want to build a country where people don't have to live in fear. It sounds so light, but it's just... having characters like this in a game matters. I just got to publish my piece in at pastemagazine.com, and in it I've asked who our heroes are. Who our heroes are in the modern day, and it's a question I've asked in this playthrough. I don't know who they are, but when I play a game like this, I sure as fuck know who the heroes are.
Aye.
And so one hero leaves us. That was one of the earliest things I said about this game when talking about it. It makes me believe in heroes. These are functionally good people. And it is a pleasure to have them as the actors that I control in a game. It's an absolute pleasure. I would almost go as far to say it's a privilege. Games like this sometimes feel a very true rarity, particularly when we look at the catalog and the canon that exists in this day and age. Anyway, not to retread old points, that is the end of this episode. Two sort of shorter episodes, but the game, as I've said, definitely picking up. We're heading into a final stretch of really interesting encounters and moments. So stick around, and we'll get through things. I'm so glad that you're here with me. I love you very much.